Good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 31st of January, 2024. You're watching Morning Brew on Labour Social with me, Graham Hughes. I did that like the words were going to come. Oh, they did. But then I made the intro sequence start again. Great start. Great start to the morning there, Graham. Anyway, good morning and welcome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Brexit. We're also going to talk a bit about the NHS as well. Those pesky experts. You know, those experts that we're sick of and what they're saying about the NHS. But let's start with Brexit because tonight at midnight begins Brexit proper. Yeah, Brexit 2.0. Brexit as it was meant to be. And you'd think that the Tories would be really excited about the fact that they're bringing in the hard Brexit that they wanted, that we'll be able to, secure our borders. The borders were very important. We had to control what was coming into our country, whether that be produce or people. We had to control that. It's very important that we control our borders, because if we can't control our borders, then we have no control over anything, do we, actually? The fact that more people are coming over in small boats than ever before since we voted to Brexit, and the days of cheap food and cheap shoes for peasants that don't seem to have materialised, which has come as a bit of a shock to Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Haunted Pencil, who was on GB News this week, going on and on and on in his monologue, oh God, it didn't even work, about the fact that it was ridiculous that we were making it so we have to inspect everything that comes into the country, which is exactly what Brexit was. The whole concept of Brexit was that we could control our own borders and have a little peek into what's coming in and out. Yeah? So for the last few years, we've been actually checking everything. We haven't, but the EU's been checking everything that we've been trying to export to the EU, slapping massive non-tariff barriers on it, effectively, with phytosanitary checks that have cost an absolute fortune, decimated small businesses that exported to the EU but couldn't afford to export to, I don't know, Japan. Do you know how much it costs to send something to Japan on a cargo ship? Yeah, it's a bit more expensive than driving it through the Channel Tunnel on a train in the back of a van. Yeah, know what I mean? Like there's a bit of a markup there. So unless you have a very specialist thing that the Japanese just can't get anywhere else in the world, it can't be fabricated anywhere else in the world, or you are a very, very big company, you are snookered. Anyway, so now it's going to go the other way. So in 2021, we were supposed to bring in these checks for produce coming into the UK. Meat, dairy, fruit, veg. We were supposed to check it all coming in, but we didn't. And we delayed it 5 times. Why did we delay it? Well, because, as Rees-Mogg himself said, to impose these checks would be an act of self-sabotage. Funny he says that, because that's exactly what Brexit is. An act of self-sabotage. Billy saying all the little peppers were rotten yesterday. Yeah, all of our fruit and veg goes off so much quicker than it used to. I hope I'm not just being an old fogey saying this. Oh, back in my day, it lasted for 19 years. But little top tip: if you've got any old jam jars, right? If you can fit like I don't know, raspberries or blueberries or soft fruits, put them in a jam jar. Okay, as soon as you open them, put them in the jam jar. Seal the lid. Okay, it'll give you an extra couple of days, maybe, if you're lucky. But we do a weekly shop, and honestly, by Sunday, so much of the food has gone off. So we had a weekly shop on Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days is about what we've got. We have to eat the food. So now we're looking into maybe going shopping twice a week, just because we can't rely on the fruit and veg that we buy to stay fresh for those 4 days, even in a refrigerator, that we are paying over the odds for, because our energy bills have gone through the roof, because the Tories are a bunch of effing... Sorry, don't swear. Too early in the morning to swear. My mum might be watching. Because the Tories have been running the country into the ground for the last 14 years. Anyway, so these Brexit checks come in tonight. And what's going to happen first is that these any produce coming into the country is going to need to get a veterinary certificate, which means that these companies exporting to the UK from the EU, this is over half our food, guys. Half our food. half our food, is going to have a certificate. They're going to have to get a vet to sign it off. There's not enough vets. These companies, some of the small companies, can't afford it. So what's this going to mean to us? Well, we're going to have the price of that vet check put onto us. It's going to be between £25 and £50 per consignment. And don't forget, you could have multiple consignments in the one lorry. Coming over from the EU. Plus, obviously, you've got to pay for the vet as well. So the actual outcome to that is it's going to put up our food prices by over £300 million a year. And because the same thing that happened in the UK when we Brexited, that the small exporters went out of business, because they couldn't afford to export to the EU anymore. The same thing's going to happen to EU businesses that export to the UK. I'm not going to say they're going to go out of business because they have a huge market of other people to sell to, 450 million other people around the EU who don't require these checks. However, the line going to the UK is more likely for the small businesses to be cut. For the big businesses, they're going to jack up the prices. What does that mean for you, the consumer? It means there's going to be less options in the supermarket. It's going to mean the food is going to go off even quicker. And it's going to be more expensive. The worst of all possible worlds. So cheap shoes for peasants and cheap food and cheap electronics and cheap cars, it hasn't happened. It's gone the other way. Everything's become more expensive. And I'd just like to say, on behalf of everyone who campaigned against Brexit over many years, we freaking told you so. This is exactly what we said would happen. I'm not expecting people who defended me a few years ago because of my anti-Brexit stance to ever wake up one day and go, you know what, Graham was right. I'm going to give him a call and say that I'm sorry. I don't think that's going to happen because, arrogance. But at the same time, they must know in their heart of hearts that they have effed up. They have absolutely monumentally effed up everything for everyone. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in. So this is just the certificate part. The interesting part starts in a few months' time, in April. That's when there's going to be actual physical checks on goods coming in to the country. Now, we've already set up the infrastructure for this. And this is another trick that the Tories have done because they're scum, because they're money funneling scum who funnel money away from you, the taxpayer. You having to pay your tax bill today? Yeah. Last day to get your self-assessment in. Get your self-assessment, pay your tax bill so Michelle Mone can get an even bigger yacht. So John Barrowman, who's currently on trial in Spain for defrauding the Spanish government. So Doug Barrowman facing up to 5.5 years in jail. Our government gave this man nearly £250 million. £250 million of our money. And do you know what he gave them? Bumkus. He gave them over £120 million of unusable hospital gowns. And also kept 60 million of it for himself and his greedy little selfish family, who all should be in jail. Proceeds of crime and all that jazz. Anyway, the point being, the Tories went round the country after Brexit and said, right, you need to build to all the ports in Liverpool and Portsmouth and Plymouth and Southampton, and said, you need to build facilities for inspecting all the fruit and veg that's going to come, the food and veg, I'll say, the food that's going to be coming into the country. And they said, okay. So they started building facilities at a great expense. And then the Tories said, no, we're not actually going to give you the full amount of money for building these facilities because we're not going to use them. Because these facilities were supposed to be paid for by the people exporting stuff into the UK from the EU. So if that didn't happen for 2 years, 3 years, actually, 3 years, it was supposed to be done in 2021. It meant that every year these facilities sat empty, but they had to be maintained. So that cost £1 million at least a year for each of these facilities. The Tories didn't give them the full money that they needed to keep the upkeep of these places. And so who paid for it? You did, out of your council tax. If you live in Liverpool or Hull or any of the port towns, cities of the United Kingdom, you pay for that out of your council tax, and that's why your bins aren't being emptied. That's why your streets are full of potholes, because they're all being paid. All that money has been paid to millions of pounds has been paid to maintain these big warehouses, empty warehouses that have no one in them. Because we were going to do these checks 2 years ago and they were going to be paid for by the exporters. But the government realised, even Rees-Mogg, an idiot like Rees-Mogg can see this. He saw, did I say John Barrowman? I'm sorry, Doug Barrowman. No offence to John Barrowman from Doctor Who and Going Live. No, Live and Kicking. Look, Doug Barrowman. Sorry, Freudian slip. Anyway, yes. So the councils end up paying all this, right? And the government were like, oh, it's okay because the exporters will pay it. And then the government thought, oh, hang on. The exporters have to put this charge on and they have to pay these extra charges to bring stuff into this country. They're going to pass that on to the consumer. And then food prices are going to go up. And that's going to be really bad, isn't it? Yes, it is. Because the cost of living is through the roof. Our rents are through the roof. Our mortgages are through the roof. The cost of just keeping your head above water. I was reading reports today. This is the driest January ever. Do you think that's because people are like, oh, I should really think about having a healthy lifestyle? I think maybe some are. But do you know what the reality is? Most of us are broke. The only beers I've had this month are ones that have been left here from New Year. That's it. By other people. not even my beers. I've been drinking other people's beers and I've only had about 4 for the entire month because, you need to eke them out, don't you? So Dry January this year was so successful, not because of health. I mean, maybe for some people it would have been about the health. Mostly it was about the cost. It's now £5 for a pint. Standard. £5 for a pint of lager. And you just, what? Hey, how does that work? Well, you got to cover your staffing fees, your rent, your corporation tax. It's like, my God. And now our food is going to go up in price. Our water, the cost of water, and the fact that they're not even treating our sewage anymore. I'm glad we're free of the EU, so we can pay more for our food. We can't travel, we can't live and work in the EU anymore, and that's curtailed the horizons for our children. And food's going to go up in price. I mean, just everything about it is just horrific, just horrific. And this is the situation in which we have found ourselves here at the end of January in 2024. Yeah, so I'll just jump into your chat for a moment before I start talking about the NHS. Wow, there's loads of people in the chat today. Hello, everyone. Server's in there, and we've got Nick and Diff. Hello. We've got Stephanie and Richard and Purity Vendetta and Daily Blase. Good morning, my friends. And my family are very, very, thank you. I hope you families are very, very well too. Oh, very well. Okay, very good. Thank you very much for that, Darren. I'm sorry, Graham. I wish I knew you guys. I fell for it. I wish I knew you guys back then. Oh, thanks, Liam. Oh, thank you. I'm quite touched by that. Someone actually said sorry. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, it's made my day. Doug Barrowman. Yes, Doug. Sorry, I said John. John Barrowman sang Springtime for Hitler in the remake of The Producers. He did indeed. I know there's also in Doctor Who playing Captain Jack Harkness. Purity says, nothing is going to fix the UK in my lifetime. Or all I hope for is a freedom of movement backed by whatever means necessary. That's some Purity for Vendetta. Yeah, I want to be back in the EU. I want to be for a pint. Don't waste it on food. €5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Super chat. I've changed the super chat graphic because people were complaining that it looked too much like a bowling alley animation. So there you go. You want to drop a super chat in? Yeah, it comes now. Migraine, stroke, epileptic fit free. Okay, so yeah, enjoy. £3.60 a pint at the Working Man's Club. I mean that's just, it's staggering, isn't it? It's absolutely staggering. So, the minimum wage, well, it was a bit less back in the noughties. It was like £7 or something like that. But at least you could get, a few pints for that, especially up north. In the Jacaranda in Liverpool bar, and also in the Pilgrim on Pilgrim Street, they used to do £1 bottles of Stella, £1 in a pub. It was like £1. It was great days. And so, you were earning £7 an hour minimum wage. You could afford 7 bottles of bloody Stella. Nowadays, it's like you work for an hour and you can barely afford one pint. I spent £6.50 on a glass of wine and Chris in a pub in Hull last week. Jesus Christ. €2.50 a pint in Fuerteventura. Oh my God, Tinkanator, thank you so much for the absolutely gargantuan massive £50 super chat. Wow, that is really sweet. Thank you so much. Super chat. James O'Brien on LBC did a good retrospective yesterday about Brexit promises from people like Rees-Mogg, or Smug, as I like to call him. Sadly, my dad has got gammon brain and worships cretins like Smug. The Brexit denial is strong in a minority. It is indeed. Thank you so much for that really generous contribution to the channel. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Really needed right now as well, so thank you. One Angry Pagan says, realignment is the first stage of rejoining. None of this has been immediate, and reversing it won't be either. Labour is aware of this. Well, yes, that's something that I was going to mention. This is a huge shit sandwich that is being handed to Labour. And one of the reasons why I think that they've delayed it till this point is this is like the last possible moment before they hand things over to Labour, because that's pretty much what everyone seems to think is going to happen. It would be a massive shock if the Tories win this next election after all that done. But you know, they've as Tinkanator was saying, they have already seeded an entire generation, and not everyone from that generation, but there is a generation that grew up before the internet, that grew up believing that what was in the newspapers was true. And it's not. And then they were left to go forage for themselves on the internet, and they found a lot of other stuff that also wasn't true, but sounded like the stuff that had been drip fed, this poison that had been drip fed from the tabloids for many, many years, from things like the Daily Hate, which famously supported the British Union of Fascists in the 1930s, the Daily Hate that also said that we shouldn't be taking any Jewish refugees. The Daily Hate, which was one of the main reasons why the Kinder Transport was a Kinder Transport and not just a transport for everyone trying to flee Nazi-occupied Austria. I don't drink these days, ex-alcoholic, but I still want everyone to be able to afford a pint, and that's socialism. Yeah, it's fair enough. You know, I don't have kids of my own, but I want other people's kids to be educated, at least so they can buy my book and read it. Well, I suppose they could buy it. I'd like them to read it as well. May election to give Labour maximum economic problems. I don't think they're going to do it in May because of I think the timeline's going to be like this, and I've said this before. Sorry if I'm boring people who watch these regularly. I think they're going to wait until after there is a memorandum of understanding or something equivalent with the Indian government for an Indian trade deal. They don't have to get the trade deal through. I know trade deals take a long time to get through. Just ask Canada. But I can see Rishi Sunak, because he has a massive vested interest. He has over 700 million vested interests in this deal going ahead, because obviously it will increase the value of Infosys shares, and he has him and his wife, his family, have a massive stake in Infosys shares. Funny how a few weeks ago the Tories tested the water with whether they should get rid of inheritance tax, and it just seems to be really, really unpopular with people. It would lead to like a £7 billion shortfall in tax collection, and it's only paid by an absolute minority of the population. And I think they hoped there wasn't going to be someone like Martin Lewis who would come along and explain that unless you are inheriting over £1 million from your parents, both of them, then you don't pay any tax on that. So you can get £1 million tax-free. If there's a house involved, if one of your parents goes and then the other one goes, it gets deferred. It gets deferred from the first parent going to when the second parent goes. So you get £500,000 per parent. And if you live in a cushy number and your parents have £1 million house, you will inherit that house tax-free. Can't stress this enough, tax-free. You only pay tax on anything above £1 million. Now, £1 million to me, to you, to most of the people we know, is an insane amount of money. It is a life-changing sum of money, and money that would mean that we wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things for the foreseeable, right? Look at the Tories, though. I mean, this guy who's in charge, Rishi Sunak, he's worth over 700 million. So 1 million is nothing to this man. 1 million is chicken feed. 1 million is like you've just won 700 quid at the bookies. You walk past a homeless person and you give him £1 out of your stack of, fivers and some change, I guess. Give him five. That's 5 times more. Because you're like, oh, okay, I've won all this money. I should probably give some to people who are less fortunate than I, or whatever. It's a tiny amount, an absolutely tiny amount to these people, and that's why they don't want inheritance tax, because when they cark it, their children are going to be inheriting probably £1 billion by then at least, and they're like, oh, what? So they have to pay tax on the subsequent 999 million. Oh, God, that doesn't seem too fair. Our current system of capitalism is fair in any way, shape, or form. Give you a clue, it's not. Anyway, so now they're moving on to the Labour plan to impose VAT on school fees. And there were some absolutely hilarious news stories coming out of people saying, well, I mean, I have to come back on the skiing holidays. It's just not cricket. It's just like not the win they probably think it is. Oh my God, people are reading these stories about these poor people having to wait, months to get life-saving treatment on the NHS. Yeah, but did you hear about that rich couple who could only afford one ski trip last year? One. Poor bastards. My heart goes out to them. Anyway, Grant says, as soon as Sunak gets his Indian trade deal, he will call an election. And I think his family, wife, dad-in-law, have interest in Tata. It's Infosys. Infosys is the second biggest tech company in India. It's absolutely massive. And that's going to happen. Cathal says, seriously, what's wrong with Sunak and the like? How much does having 800 million impact on having anyone more than having 700 million does? 800 million. Insider trading, well, yeah, it is. I think we should start a GoFundMe for that poor Tory struggling on his £84,000 salary. Where's the tiny violin? Yes, this was a Conservative MP, privately educated, of course, at a college that I think is £16,000 per term now. And he said he couldn't be a minister anymore because he's got to be a minister anymore because he doesn't pay enough because he can barely afford the mortgage. And the rest of us are like looking at him going, excuse me, as someone who was a minister, you were being paid, 130,000 a year, and you couldn't live off that. And you've got people in the same effing party who are like, oh, you can live off 30p a day. Okay, so square that circle. You've got 30p Leanderthal, saying you can live off 30p a day. And you've got Lords such and such saying, oh, well, 130,000 doesn't mean it's chicken feed, isn't it? You can't really buy anything with that. And the reason why he's resigned as minister is because he knows the election is coming up and there is a period of time in which you are not allowed to work for a company that you may have helped out while you were a minister. So he's getting out early so that he can get his options in as soon as possible. I think it's like a year or 2 years out. You've got to be out as a minister before you can get a job in a role in a company that was somehow impacted by this is what they want to do, because all the Tories are now rats. Well, they always were, but they are rats leaving a sinking ship and grabbing all the gold on the way out. So there you go. I thought inheritance tax started at 325,000. Graham, might be worth checking. Plum, it does. If you're not inheriting from a parent, if it's from an uncle or from just some random stranger who just wants to give you loads of money, yes, it does start at 325,000. But most people who are worried about inheritance tax are worried about their parents getting it from the parents because the house is worth more than that, or the house is worth over $500,000. The house is worth maybe $750,000 if they live in London, right? The rule is that if there is a property involved and it's coming from your parents, the tax-free threshold gets bumped up to £500,000 per parent, and it gets deferred. So if one parent dies and then 20 years later the other parent dies, you have £1 million, £1 million tax-free. That's the way it works. The fact that people are going, oh, I have to pay inheritance tax on this money that I did no work to create and just won by the life lottery. It is an absolute nonsense. £1 million is more than enough money to live on for a very long time. If you went to Thailand, you'd be able to live off that for the rest of your life. UK's inheritance tax is insanely low, says Johan. Yeah, someone was telling me that in Finland, I think Yoni was telling me that in Finland, the inheritance tax is something at I think it's at anything over €20,000 you get taxed on, which, fair enough. It's 3 million. Imagine having 700 million in the bank and being still that obsessed with having more. Yeah, absolutely, indeed. Right, we're going to head over to the papers now, I hope. Hello, papers. Oh, good. Bit of a worry there. I was like, where are the papers? We need them. So we've got the Mirror here. Where is the money? This is the bra tycoon hubby on trial. This is Doug, not John, Barrowman, who is in court in Spain on charges of defrauding the Spanish government. A bit of a tax dodge, which he was doing. This is Bashir. This is Martin Bashir, who famously interviewed Princess Diana in this very, very famous BBC interview that was done in about 1995, I think it was. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. I was only 16. Apparently he's the victim now. This guy, this journalist, faked emails and statements which were given to Diana, who was already incredibly paranoid, thinking that the British state was out to get her. And he faked statements to make it look like people were being paid money. Oh my God, I've got another super chat. Thank you so much, Plumduff. Thank you. I'll do the old super chat thing on this one. Oh, thank you very much, Plumduff. 50 quid. Jesus, thank you. Because you're a good man. Oh, thank you, Plumduff. I'm going to cry now. Oh, I've got to bring myself together. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Tinkernator and Plumduff, that is so incredibly generous. Thank you. I'm wow. Wow. Seriously. Thanks. Anyway, yeah. Apparently, Martin Bashir is the victim in all this, which is just, I don't know. I understand there is probably racism in the BBC. It's a big institution, and it was full of wrong-uns like Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Russell Brand. But at the same time, I think, no, mate, come on. You set Princess Diana up to do an interview under false pretenses. You can't really get away from that. It's not like he's gone to jail or anything. Migration rules will halt shock population rise. This is the Daily Express going on about migration to stop the population rise. It's not the population rise that's the problem, mate. It's the number of old people who aren't working. People old, not working, taking pensions for like 25, 35 years that the working population can't afford to maintain. That's a sum that will not square. Yeah. Rise of Cyborg. This is about Elon Musk putting chips in people's brains. Indeed. This is funny. It's funny because he's like a hero. Musk is like a hero to people who are like, oh, he's trying to put, Bill Gates, he's trying to put microchips into the vaccines to make our heads explode or whatever it is. And you're like, hang on, what? And now you support your big hero, your space Karen of all wonderful space Karens is doing the same thing, and everyone's like, "Yay, we like it when he does it." Okay. Little room for big tax cuts, says Hunt tells Tories. Indeed. The state of the NHS should be declared national emergency, experts say. I'm way over time already. I'm really sorry, but I was going to talk a little bit more about this. It's probably going to be my main story, but obviously the situation with the new regulations coming in for the Brexit border checks is a bit more pressing because it comes in at midnight tonight. But essentially, the British Medical Journal got a panel of experts together, and they were like, "Oh my God, the NHS is in a critical condition at the moment after 14 years of Tory underfunding and cuts." And it's not just the fact that there are so many people who are waiting for critical life-saving surgery and treatment for chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and cancer treatment, where they actually cut it out. You're only supposed to wait 60 days maximum, and like over a third of people are waiting more than that now because of the money isn't there. Quite simply, the money isn't there, and the Tories like, oh, it's all because the junior doctors are going on strike. No, it's not. That this has been going on for years. The waiting list has been going through the roof for years. Don't let the Tories make it out like it's the doctor's fault. It is not the doctor's fault. It is the fault of the Tories. As is the fact that there were over 200,000 incidents last year of problems caused by the infrastructure of our hospitals. These are fires. These are floods. These are masonry falling off the walls. Over 100 incidents a day across the country. Across all our NHS facilities, which are crumbling apart because the Tories have underinvested for 14 years. But yeah, that's the short of it. Little room for big tax cuts. Hunt tells Tories. There is the Tories think they're going to have a big tax cutting budget next month. Cameron didn't clear two-state solution speech at number 10. Well, he's a lord. Why should he have to talk to the commoners in the House of Commons? You put him in place, mate. Suffering your jocks. I mean, this is like a wonderful little bit of F around and find out, isn't it? We'll put someone who's absolutely unelected and the electorate can't get rid of, didn't choose and can't get rid of, and we're going to make him foreign secretary and just leave him to it. Navy ready to send carrier to the Red Sea. That's to do with the Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. We've also got the IMF warning Hunt against tax cuts in the spring budget. And also the Metro follows the Musk news about dawn of the cyborg. And Sunak's crumbling election hopes hit by triple whammy. Let's end it. Let's end today's show on a high, because this it's been a difficult January, which seems to have gone on for 366 days. But here's the triple whammy. IMF warns the Tories they can't afford to cut taxes despite election pledge. It's the International Monetary Fund, based out of America. Cabinet Minister Badenoch exposed as an evil plotter despite denials, which is quite an interesting thing that's come out. A lot of Tory bigwigs have been saying she's completely crazy. And 3, the UK population to rise by 6.6 million, powered by net migration despite Brexit. Hurrah. So the one thing that the Tories reckoned they were going to do, they didn't actually do. So there you go. What's this? Send your hat to Rwanda. The rest should follow. Okay. The Inquirer, whatever it is, but there's definitely something wrong with them. Why not enjoy life rather than carry on as a public enemy? I don't know. I don't know why people do this. I keep saying this, but if I had the money, right, I would just have a party. That's it. Not a political party. I'd just have a party. That just wouldn't end. I'd spend the rest of my life having a good time, meeting people from around the world, having a nice time on a beach somewhere, flying out my friends and family to come and stay. I'll pay off all my friends and family's mortgages. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, I mean, this idea that you're only going to be happy if you have one of these vats full of gold coins like Scrooge McDuck. It's just bizarre, isn't it? Like, and that's why I think there's a serious mental health issue with these ultra capitalists, which is that they can never have enough. Nothing in their life will ever give them the satisfaction. Like, Trump was the president of the United States. It wasn't enough for him. He wanted to be president for life, and if he wins in November, he will be. Just have a party, just have a good time, put on a music festival. Anyway, ciao till later. Battle of Actium this morning, 31 BCE. Cool, Sue Davenport. I don't know what that means, but enjoy your time traveling. And Sis Kinedge says, if I had the money, I'd buy a house and one for both my sisters. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you? That's what most people would do. They'll make sure the family was sorted, their friends were sorted, everyone's happy. You'd use that money to take away some of the debt, the worry, the stress that the people that you know and love are feeling. I mean, wouldn't you? I don't know. And like, how big does your house have to be? You're one person. Do you need a room with 60 rooms in it? Do you need a house with 60 rooms in it? No. I mean, come on. It's just bizarre. Anyway, been nice as always. Have a good day. I feel bad because we've got 2 super chats still live in the chat thing. We've got the chat window set up. So I'll put the super chat graphic up again. Thank you so much, so much to Plum Duff and to Tinkinator there for those wonderful super chats. I wish I could say I'm off down the pub. But you know what I'm going to do now? I'm gonna go online and start looking at tripods because I need a new tripod. Because I'm not using the one that came free with the crap that I bought on eBay many moons ago. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back at 12. I'm back at 12 o'clock for Prime Minister's Questions, PMQs. Same again, as always. Same as it ever was. So look out for that. And if I see you then, great. If not, Phil Morehouse will be back at 9:30 tomorrow morning for another round of Morning Brew. And until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the super chats. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.